increase in domestic violence.
Aya Ibrahim reports on the women locked in with their abusers.
We have seen a horrifying global surge in domestic violence.
क्योंकि लोग सेल्फ आइसोलेशन में होंगे, क्वारंटीन में होंगे, मूवमेंट भी कई जगहों पे बिल्कुल नहीं हो सकती लोगों की, तो इस वास्ते जो तशद्दुद औरतों पे, ख़वातीन पे हो या बच्चों पे हो, उन लोगों को मदद किस तरह पहुंचाई जाए.
Like many countries around the world, Pakistan has been in lockdown for the last few weeks in order to contain the spread of the coronavirus, COVID-19. While government regulations require or encourage most people to stay at home, for some, home is not as safe as it is often thought to be. A large percentage of violent incidents usually take place in the home, often at the hands of family or loved ones. And now, with quarantines and stay-at-home directives, rights groups around the world are reporting rising incidents of domestic abuse against women and children who are trapped at home with their abusers. Domestic violence defined under the law includes physical violence, psychological violence, emotional violence, economic violence, as well as sexual violence. It is currently defined this way under 3 laws in Sindh, Punjab, and in Balochistan. In Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the PTI government decided that any law related to women has to go to the Islamic Ideology Council for approval before it can be passed in the law. The Domestic Violence Act was not approved by the Council and was therefore not passed. But why would incidents of domestic abuse increase during a lockdown? Well, when abusers feel frustrated and powerless, they abuse more. In fact, data shows that in emergency and conflict situations, cases of domestic violence rapidly increase. In recognition of this fact, Pakistan's Ministry for Human Rights is reminding citizens of their rights under the law and the resources available to protect them.
जब घर में बंद होंगे और 24 घंटे एक दूसरे के साथ होंगे तो एक तो जो मैं समझती हूँ वायलेंस की टेंडेंसी है वो भी बढ़ सकती है और दूसरा ख़वातीन समझेंगी कि कोई मदद नहीं वो कर सकती घर से कैसे निकलें जब घर में जो तशद्दुद कर रहा है 24 घंटे मौजूद हो.
In order to provide support to victims of domestic abuse, the Ministry of Human Rights has set up a helpline that functions from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m.
हॉटलाइन पे फोन करें, हम इमीडिएटली शेल्टर से इन टच होके जिस जो तरीका बेहतर होगा, क्योंकि हमें पता नहीं वो किस शहर में है. हमारा शेल्टर इस्लामाबाद में है सिर्फ, लेकिन और शहरों में भी शेल्टर्स हैं, तो हम उनको जिधर जो उनके करीब पड़ता है या जिधर वो मुनासिब हम समझते हैं मदद मिल सकती है, हम उनको कांटेक्ट में डाल देंगे. हम अगर उनको वकला की जरूरत है वो कांटेक्ट में उनको डाल सकते हैं. तो क्योंकि जब लोग आइसोलेटेड होते हैं तो इस किस्म के मसले मसाइल वो किसके पास जाएं, किससे बात करें.
Team Soch called the helpline 5 times over the course of 2 days to make sure that lawyers were available. Only 2 of our calls were received. Moreover, it can be difficult for people reporting domestic abuse to speak freely over the phone without their abuser hearing them. Because of this, the Ministry for Human Rights has provided a WhatsApp number for people reporting domestic violence. But when we sent a WhatsApp message, we found they hadn't been online in at least 8 hours. And an hour after sending the message, we received this reply. It seems that despite the ministry's efforts, the helpline is not functioning as it should. In any case, helplines are clearly not enough to support victims of domestic abuse, and women's rights advocates in Pakistan believe that more needs to be done. Maliha Zia Lari was part of the group of lawyers, civil society members, and parliamentarians who drafted Sindh's domestic violence bill, which was passed in 2013. However, 7 years later, she says victims still face many obstacles to reporting domestic violence in Pakistan's cultural context.
I congratulate the Ministry of Human Rights for recognizing the issue. And I think that in itself is a victory for the issue overall, because where we spent years even convincing people that domestic violence does happen and it is an issue, to the federal government actually on its own accord trying to make a move. However, at the same time, it is very difficult in the current situation to respond to domestic violence. There are questions about how do you access the victim of domestic violence and how fast can you access the victim of domestic violence. If, let's say, they do an investigation, how thorough is the investigation, and do they keep checking up on this scenario? So there has to be some level of preparedness of the shelter homes and any other such crisis centers to be able to respond to such cases. For example, in France, they have opened up a hotel as a shelter for domestic violence victims during this time period.
Shelters will also be reluctant, less willing, and even less able to take women in because of the fears of the spread of the virus. The very basic services that were already quite weak, that were already not widely available to begin with, are going to be even further hampered. And we are seeing this in Karachi. We're seeing this with some of my clients and with some of the cases that I'm handling.
In Pakistan, despite detailed domestic violence bills in 3 provinces, there are still many hurdles that women face when dealing with the police and judiciary. Women are usually discouraged from reporting domestic violence by extended family members. And due to the social stigma, police officers often refuse to file an FIR. And even if an FIR is registered, pursuing a domestic violence case to court comes with its own set of complications. Many lawyers are not willing to take on domestic violence cases, and the judiciary may be skeptical, feeling that the matter is a private family dispute. And although the law states a domestic violence case must be resolved within 90 days, Lari and other lawyers say they usually take 2 to 3 years to go through the court and can have a huge psychological and financial impact on the victim.
If there was 20 cases or 100 cases which have previously resulted in the punishment of men, maybe they might feel more confidence. But when there's no certainty of punishment, then there's hesitation or lack of desire to go through the system with no positive outcome for them. In many cases, the women just want to leave. For them, getting away is more important than punishment or penalization of the man. Domestic violence still is largely recognized. People accept that it does happen, but it is trivialized. The reaction or the reality is that, there's a normalization of a certain amount of violence, whether it be physical or psychological. There's a normalization of that within families in Pakistan and generally within Pakistani society, I believe.